In this movie, I want to talk a little bit about choosing a format. Now, I want to focus more on choosing an output format. When you choose a working format, make sure you choose a format for editing that's good for your system. As we talk later in this chapter about temporal compression, you want to make sure that you're using a format that your system can handle. Formats like HDV and AVC HD that are really hard on your processing system. It might be good if you have a weaker system to render to an intermediate format and then cut with that. But again, referring to output formats, this discussion is actually a little bit easier than it once was a few years ago before there were these really powerful compressed formats. I'm just going to select my sequence here and hit Command M or Control M as in movie on the PC. That will open up my export settings dialog box, and we could talk about this a little bit here. First of all, we want to choose a format, and basically this is the file extension, but we know that far more important than the actual file extension itself, like .mov or .avi, far more important than that is actually choosing a compression algorithm. This is often referred to as a codec. And one of the biggest right now is H.264. H.264 is a format and it's also a codec. So you could actually use the QuickTime format with the H.264 codec. So it would be a .mov file, but it would still be an H.264 compressed file. Now, you could also choose H.264 as a format, in which case it will create an MP4 file, which is an H.264 file, that's both the format, MP4, and the codec. Now, the reason H.264 is so exciting is because it's such a really great compression algorithm. Most of the video in these exercise files are compressed with H.264 compression. It's just so great. The quality is amazing, and the file sizes are ridiculously small. Now, as a matter of personal preference, I actually prefer to render to the QuickTime format using H.264 compression, which you could choose in the video tab under video codec, change video codec to H.264. Now, you might look at this and say, hey, you don't have all of those formats, and that's okay. I just might have more codecs installed, but that's fine. All the key ones like H.264 will be on your system. If you're missing some of the key ones that you're looking for, try installing the latest version of QuickTime and see if that doesn't add a few more codecs to what you have going on there. Now, for just general usage stuff, if you're just trying to show a file to somebody else on a computer for a test render, that type of thing, H.264 as a codec will work great. If you need it to go to the internet and you want it to be a lighter weight file, come down here to the bottom of the video tab and you could actually set the bit rate. And so you can select bit rate and then you could actually lower this value if you need to. So if you want it to be like 500K a second as the bit rate, that will make a lower quality file, but it will also make it so that the file is much smaller. Now, if you're looking for a really high-end file, under video codecs, you can take this to animation. This is what I would recommend for most situations where you need a really high quality final result and uncompressed video is just a little bit too unruly. Especially if you're working with HD, you might want to consider working with animation because HD video is so big and to have it uncompressed, that could be almost too difficult to tame. Now, personally, I prefer working with QuickTime because the codecs that are available, especially animation and H.264, are just fantastic. I don't have Windows Media here because I am on a Mac. If you are on a PC, you'll be able to use the Windows Media format, AVI or WMV. And I don't prefer to use these because Microsoft is kind of competing with H.264, which is really a standard. It's a standard for Blu-ray players as well as on the web, on iPhones and iPods and things like that. And so Microsoft kind of has a competing format. And I find that the codecs that come with the AVI aren't as easy to use. Although if you are using Windows, you might want to look into the DivX. That's DivX. DivX is very similar to H.264. And of course, if you're going to be outputting to the web, you might want to consider outputting to FLV or F4V. FLV will result in bigger files, but it is more standard, it's more popular, so you're going to have more compatibility there. F4V is a little bit newer, and so it won't be as supported, so you might have a lot of people that will have to get an update before they watch your stuff, which can turn them away and be not as good of a thing. But F4V is a more optimal compression scheme, so it'll create smaller file sizes with better quality. Now, of course, Premiere exports to a whole host of formats, a bunch of image sequence formats like TIFF and Targa, or audio-only file formats, or even like a P2 movie or MPEG-2 for DVD Blu-ray. There's a whole host of options here, and if you're outputting to a specific medium, then they'll have specific requirements for you. But for general outputting rules, I use the QuickTime format. For high quality, I use the animation codec. For lower quality, for web stuff, I would use the H.264 codec. No doubt there's tons of other options out there. Those are just my picks.